All right, so have you heard of that show, Severance?
Yeah, I have.
It's all about this company that surgically divides their employees' memories.
Hmm.
So they have no recollection of work when they're outside of work,
Right.
and then vice versa. So when they're at work, they have no idea about their lives outside of work.
Pretty wild concept.
It is a very wild concept.
Yeah.
It's a really cool show. But that got us thinking, what's the reality behind that science fiction? Like, could that really happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a thought-provoking premise for sure.
So we've got a stack of research and articles here about the science and the ethics of memory manipulation
Yeah.
and how that all plays in. And let me tell you, it's a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. And I think what's really interesting about the show Severance is it takes something that I think we all kind of daydream about, like leaving work at work and not having to think about it when you're home.
Right.
And it pushes that to this extreme, unsettling limit,
It does.
which makes for great television. But to do that in reality, it's far more complicated than just flipping a switch in the brain.
Yeah, our sources were pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
There's no way we can erase memories that's precisely with current technology.
Hmm.
So, sorry to break it to you, but if you're dreaming of a severance procedure for yourself, you might be waiting a while.
At least for now, yeah.
But why is it so hard? We can do some pretty amazing things in medicine these days.
Well, it really comes down to how our brains work. Imagine trying to edit a single sentence out of a massive handwritten novel
Okay.
without smudging or ripping any of the surrounding pages.
Oh, that sounds difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what manipulating specific memories is like. Our brains, they store memories in these incredibly complex interconnected networks. We're talking about billions of neurons firing in specific patterns, and even a seemingly isolated memory, like your memory of what you had for breakfast this morning. That's tied to emotions and sensations and other experiences from that same morning. All those things are kind of interwoven together.
Right.
So trying to just pluck one out without affecting anything else, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it sounds pretty impossible.
Yeah, it is. We do have techniques like deep brain stimulation.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, which have shown a lot of promise in treating certain conditions like Parkinson's disease, for example. It uses targeted electrical impulses to kind of modulate brain activity.
Right.
But even with that, we can't isolate and manipulate memories with that kind of precision. Like in Severance,
Yeah.
we're just scratching the surface of understanding how memories are formed and stored and retrieved.
Well, yeah.
The brain is very complex.
So no surprise, work-life balance memory implants coming anytime soon.
Probably not.
But even if that tech did exist,
Yeah.
the ethical questions are just huge, right?
Absolutely massive. Yeah, let's forget the technical hurdles for a second. Even if we could do this, should we? It's a big question.
Yeah.
Imagine the potential for coercion,
Oh, yeah.
the potential for exploitation.
Yeah.
A lot of the sources that we looked at highlighted this risk, that employers might push for this kind of technology to create these hyper-efficient, unquestioning workers.
Yeah.
It's, a slippery slope.
Yeah.
It could erode our sense of personal autonomy in ways that we can barely even fathom right now.
And how could anyone truly consent to a procedure like that?
Right.
It's not like getting a tattoo. We're talking about altering your own mind.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a completely different level.
It makes you wonder, would someone even be the same person afterward? If you change their memories so drastically.
That's a really interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our identity, our sense of self, it's so intricately tied to our memories and our experiences.
It is.
And Severance actually touches on this pretty well.
It does, yeah.
You see these characters, they're grappling with confusion. They feel like pieces of themselves are missing.
Right, like they're not whole.
Exactly, yeah. And you see echoes of this in the real world, too, like people dealing with amnesia.
Right.
Or dissociative disorders.
Right.
Where fragments of their memory or their identity become inaccessible.
Yeah.
And it can be deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
Even traumatic for people.
Yeah, it's like, what happens to the whole person if you keep chopping their life up into these separate pieces?
Right.
Do they just become like a collection of fractions rather than a complete individual?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling to think about.
It really is.
And it raises this other really important point. corporations are already pushing those boundaries in a lot of ways.
You are.
I mean, think about all the employee monitoring software out there.
Yeah.
You know, these productivity apps that try to gamify every single task, even things like wearable tech, that tracks our biometrics all day long.
It's true, yeah.
I mean, it's not surgical memory manipulation, but it makes you wonder.
It does.
Are these subtle steps towards eroding that separation between our work lives and our personal lives?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
So even if we never reach that full severance level of memory manipulation,
Yeah.
those questions about control
Yeah.
and who we are and how we define ourselves,
Right.
they're still relevant in today's world.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, what makes this whole conversation so important.
It does.
Because even if we never get to the point where we can surgically separate our memories, we're already facing decisions about how much we're willing to let technology and employers blur those lines for us. And that's something that we all really need to be thinking about carefully.
That's a great point.
And that's something to leave you with,
Yeah.
Even if we never get to that severance level of memory manipulation, how much are we willing to cede that control? How much are we willing to let those lines be blurred
Yeah.
in the pursuit of, productivity or efficiency?
Right. Well, that is definitely something to think about. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today. But thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.